Welcome, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to this week's edition of the Sunday Wire. I'm your host, Patrick Henningsen. We're streaming out live on X, also on YouTube, Rumble, hopefully, Facebook Live as well, and also will be on Odyssey and BitChute. It's great to have you guys with us. We're also at 21stcenturywire.com. Hello to everybody in the 21 Wire chat room. Great to see you guys in there. Great to see the activity happening there. This is episode 522. That's right. We're well over the half century mark, 522 of this weekly omnibus news and analysis radio program, the Sunday Wire, brought to you here on ACR. We've got a little bit of a variety program today. We're going to hit a couple of big, pithy subjects. Of course, the U.S. elections. I want to get the reactions from my punditry, my local punditry here at ACR. Hesher, host of the Boiler Room, is going to join us in a moment, as well as Adam Ruckus Clark, who's also been working on a series, a disinformation series on his program, The Daily Ruckus, which airs on the Alternate Current Radio Network. We'll talk about that with Adam Clark as well. And later we'll be joined, hopefully, on the live stream by Basil Valentine of TNT radio fame, now with the Pulse. And also Phil Zimmerman, an entertainer and a comedian, somewhat offbeat. He wants to perform a live rendition of his new track, Freedom Flower, on this very program, probably in the second hour. So that should be entertaining, to say the least. If you've ever seen Phil or heard Phil Zimmerman before, you know you're in for somewhat of a treat. Anything's possible, especially if it's a live broadcast. But without further ado, let's bring on to the program our guests. I want to bring, first of all, Hesher onto the stage right now. Hopefully, we'll bring him on as well. We'll bring Adam Clark on as well. He'll be joining us. Hesher, how you doing?
Hey, good, man. It's great to see you, Patrick.
So I think the last time we spoke, Hesher, if I'm not mistaken, last Sunday, before November 5th, before the big day, the election happened soon after that. We were all kind of waiting with trepidation and horror that night. I mean, I'm still traumatized from 2020. I'll be honest with you.
Yeah.
2020, I went to bed and it looked like I knew who was going to be president. They had called Georgia and North Carolina and everything. And then I woke up and like the story was totally different. And Joe Biden had risen from the dead again, and somehow the army of the dead came storming over the hill in Wisconsin and Pennsylvania and so forth. And Joe Biden was president. And then the last 4 years, quite frankly, have been a nightmare on so many different levels. I mean, it's probably the worst presidency in the history of the country. And I'm not being partisan saying that. I know a lot of Democrats will probably agree with me as well. It was so bad he couldn't even actually carry through with the campaign. That's a new one, right?
Yeah.
So your reactions, though. Donald Trump is president. I mean, I'm still kind of on tenterhooks, though. Like, what's going to happen in the next 70 days? Biden could really F it up. Something in the world could happen. Who knows what he's capable of, or what they could do to Trump between now and January 20th. But anyway, firstly, your feelings or your reactions on the election results.
Very similar, Patrick. Ruckus, myself, Infidel Pharaoh, Spore, we were monitoring it in real time. We had a number of guests join us. We had a great time on Tuesday in the Boiler Room, and we were feeling the same way. It was like Infidel Pharaoh, he stayed up all night. He didn't even want to go to sleep. He was like, no, I'm going to be up all night. I want to see the shenanigan when it happens. I don't want to wake up to something different. And we closed the show out, and it was looking like a red wave when we closed the show out, and we were still kind of like, can we say it happened? And it was like, I don't want to jinx it, and then sat around and watched the live stream after the Boiler Room ended, and sure enough, 2 a.m. in the morning, Trump's doing an acceptance speech, and it's just like, wow, is this really happening? So yeah, it was pretty amazing to see, and I really, really got a kick on Wednesday and Thursday, just surfing the meltdowns. Like, it's the first time I've sat down and watched The View or Anderson Cooper on Purpose, Van Jones. It was great. It's watching the leftists meltdown. First of all, super fun. and then watching the mass media cartel leftists blame each other, blame their viewers, blame Joe Biden, blame Kamala Harris. It's just been, the coping has been really, really fun to watch. And, the victory laps by people with the savior complex for Trump have been equally entertaining to watch in some cases. And I'm with you ultimately. I'm always skeptical. I don't trust any politicians, but I'm pleased with the result considering the alternative. And the next 70 days are really the big question mark right now.
Yeah, that's one step at a time. I mean, I fully admit, Hesher, I got the guilty pleasure, the sort of dopamine rush is a little muted this time. But after Hillary Clinton lost in 2016, there was a real feeling of satisfaction to watch the establishment, all the celebrity endorsements, Hollywood, all basically going into an emotional and psychological tailspin. I personally derived quite a lot of joy from that, and I
Yes.
admit that is a guilty pleasure. So I felt that again here in 2024, although a lot calmer. I think, and I will say this: the Trump campaign, as hard as it is to control Donald Trump in terms of what he says and does, he's a very, let's say, impromptu politician, but he ran a very disciplined campaign compared to the past two campaigns. Extremely disciplined. So there were less opportunities to want to sort of go, oh, Donald, there wasn't many of those opportunities, although there were a few. But still, I thought maybe, that the left and the crazies out there in the kind of media, entertainment, political establishment, that they would sort of accept the result. And I think many of them did, surprisingly. There's been a lot of, I think, mea culpas I've seen, even on MSNBC, that they're questioning themselves now. I think this is ultimately very healthy. But I will say the Democratic Party is toast. They're toast. Then I don't think they're going to be able to recover to previous heights for maybe 8 years. I think it's going to take them 8 years to rebuild. Because what have they been doing over the last 8 years, Hesher? They haven't done anything. They haven't pursued any policies. It's just been an anti-Trump party and an anti-MAGA party, and the fear-mongering, orange Hitler, Nazi, etc., fascism. And meanwhile, they've been building up their own, Democrats in the permanent state have built up their own fascist institutions and policies during that time. But they haven't done anything for the country, or, they haven't moved anything forward positive for the country. I mean, what Biden's basically still boasting, oh, we have greatest economic growth in history. That's called a dead cat bounce. When you're negative growth during COVID and you go to plus 4 and you say that's a record growth, that is so ridiculous. That's called the dead cat bounce. So like they've been touting the dead cat bounce now for the last couple of years. Record job. America's never seen job growth like this. Full employment, low and so inflation's been terrible. Okay, cost of food. I'll stop it there. So the Democrats are starting to basically reflect on some of these things. Ultimately, I think this is going to be good for them. I think an intelligent opposition can emerge from this, and I like opposition. I think the American eagle needs two wings to fly. It needs the left and a right wing, and they need to somehow find some balance. And there needs to be healthy opposition. That's the same for Republicans when they're in opposition. So I think ultimately for foreign policy and getting different ideas and voices in, I think it's good to have a counterbalance on this. So I'm very positive, and also watching the Gen Zs migrate to Trump, African American men migrating to Trump. I think this is positive because we're getting away from identity politics and we're getting down to policy. That's where I want to be politically. I can't stand gender and identity politics running the slate every election. It's just getting nauseating. Your thoughts, Hesher?
Yeah, exactly. we played a clip on Thursday Night's Boiler Room of a guy called Scott Jennings on CNN, and he laid it out to the pundits. He was sitting there next to Anderson Cooper, Van Jones, and a couple of other people, and he told them exactly that. He basically told them, hey, we blew this because people are saying I can't afford groceries. And just he lays out the big ones, the border, the crime, the groceries, etc., foreign wars. And he called out, he called out everybody in the room. He called out the broadcast network. He's calling out CIANN and saying, this campaign did not speak towards what people are actually worried about right now. And he dressed them down a little bit with some facts, nice and calmly, and then passed the talking stick over to Van Jones, who immediately. It's so funny to watch them react to statements like that, realistic, factful statements about policy, and the failings of policies, and to watch someone like Van Jones spin it and try to say, oh well, all these people are hurting now, and this is going to happen, and to going on and on, like the ghouls on The View going on and on about uneducated voters, insulting all the women in the country, uneducated women voters, so it's like, they no longer have any ground to stand on when it comes to policy. All they can do is fall back into the racial and gender identity politics, and that's why it's so fun to watch. It's just like someone will like Scott will say something like that, and then they just go, oh, but the marginalized people, oh, but the oh, the deportations, this is going to be awful, and it's just like, oh, wait a minute here. People would like to live in a nation, in an America that's not festering with crime coming from foreign countries, one that's not rotting from fentanyl killing 100,000 people a year. These things are all completely off the table for those guys, and all they can do is just go right back to their identity politics, which just makes them less and less relevant, considering that landscape that you just laid out.
So it seems to me, Hesher, that looking at the Harris campaign, like, what do we call it? The SNAP campaign, what was it, 100-day campaign or whatever. It's like she just kind of arrived, did the final mile for Joe. It was kind of like a relay race, I guess.
Yeah.
So like the only issue that I can think of that I could identify was abortion. So if you're running for president and your whole campaign is hanging on, somehow abortion, and it was kind of based on a lie, because she said that there's women that are going to die if they don't, because they don't have access to reproductive health if Donald Trump is elected president. And if you do a quick fact check, it's pretty clear that I don't think there's any state in the United States where a woman can be denied or go to jail for seeking an abortion or something like that. The whole point of the overturning of Roe v. Wade, and we have to repeat this constantly because some people just don't get it. It was, instead of making it a federal mandate, they basically kicked the issues back to the states. So, and different states are going to regulate that issue different ways in terms of the length of time where the state's allowing for, an abortion. So it would be like some places will be, I don't know the numbers, but 13 weeks, 20 weeks. There's different thresholds that they're debating on. I think that's healthy because ultimately I think it's good. The more local democracy you have on these types of issues, the more people have a say in what goes on within their state and county and local communities. What's more democratic than that, Hesher? I think that's fantastic.
Yeah, it's and you're correct. There's not a single state where a woman can't be seen for just about anything in this regard. And Senator Langford, I believe, just did something where he was asking one Mrs. Hacker all these questions. Hey, are there any states in the country where a woman can't, have A, B, C, D, E? He went through all the different things. Cares for expecting mothers and stuff like that, ectopic pregnancies, all these things that we hear them rattling on about. Kamala Harris herself even said, that it's basically illegal to have a miscarriage now, and that you can be put in jail for having a miscarriage, or that you won't be able to get treatment if you have an ectopic pregnancy or a miscarriage or something like that. Bold-faced lies, and that came out on the floor of Congress just recently. So it's really interesting that they thought they could run on that, and people aren't having it. A lot of people are pissed about it, but those seem to be the people that don't understand the actual laws. And heck, yeah, some things have changed in a lot of those red states that you see on the map, but plenty of blue states left for you if the most important thing for you is, if your perception of freedom is being able to kill a baby, you can go to any of those states that are blue on that map, and you can, do that as often as you like.
Yeah, when it really comes down to that as being one of those wedge issues in the United States, it's been a wedge issue for a long time. The one thing I was surprised I didn't hear, normally the old chestnut, Donald Trump's going to take away Social Security.
Yeah.
Donald Trump's going to take away medical care and all this. So you didn't hear that this time, and that was quite nice. It's kind of a relief, because you have these sort of old tropes they line up. That Republicans are going to take away all their, entitlements and benefits and Social Security. I mean, it's ridiculous, because just as many Republicans are basically living off Social Security as Democrats in the United States. So especially the increase in working class Republicans that have joined the ranks of the GOP. So, but it's kind of a tragic ending for Kamala Harris. I can't see how she can recover politically from this. She didn't even show up to address her supporters on election night, and people had gathered, and she didn't show up to talk to them. And normally they do that, some kind of a late night concession speech or whatnot. That didn't happen. She waited and turned it into a kind of a pep rally, saying we've lost, but we've really won. And I'm going to fight for you and all this other stuff. I just think her whole entry into this, and her vice presidency has been very uninspirational, I think, to put it lightly. I mean, I didn't see. Did she do anything? The last thing that she did that looked of any significance was like at the beginning of Biden's term, they sent her to, I think it was the Munich Security Conference or something. It was like in 2021, and she gaffed it so bad, and it was such a disaster. Or I can't remember. It was right before maybe before the Ukraine war or something like that. And she was trying to talk tough and act statesman-like and whatever, and the whole thing failed. That's the last major trip they sent her on. It was that bad. But then Joe's not much better on the road either. So the whole thing is just, at least now you can probably be pretty sure the difference between a Biden administration and a Trump administration is you kind of know there is actually a chief executive who's going to be in charge with Trump. I feel pretty safe in saying that. He is the CEO. He is the commander in chief. I hope he makes the right decisions, makes the right policy choices, does the right things for America and for the world. So we're hoping for the best, but it is politics, and there's a lot of sharks swimming around the tank. Now, Trump has rebuffed some of those this week on Truth Social. I don't know if you saw, Hesher, but they categorically ruled out the inclusion of Mike Pompeo and Nikki Haley in any future Trump cabinet. That's in writing. That was released today on Truth Social. Roger Stone was cheering this on. Everybody I know who's real MAGA was cheering this on. They're very happy about this, and for good reason. There's a lot of worry about Pompeo slithering his way into a major position in the Trump administration. The neocons, Israel, they all wanted to shoehorn Pompeo in. But we know that if Mike Pompeo comes in, you don't just get Mike Pompeo with that. You get the entire Atlantic Council and that whole cesspool across the road from Pennsylvania Avenue. You get all that with Pompeo. That includes all his staffers, and you get the Israeli lobby with a huge, I mean, as if they don't already have a great foothold already in the Trump administration. Mike Pompeo basically gives them, a whole wing of the White House, basically, if he's in as Secretary of State, CIA director, or anything like that. defense minister. That's, I think, the position that he was pining for, was Secretary of Defense. So that's good. Nikki Haley, great that she's not around. That's the end of her political career. I don't know where she's. What can she? We're not here to have a griping and slagging off session, but objectively, what is Nikki Haley's political future look like? What could she possibly do from here? Is it going to be media? Because I can't see her going back into politics. Like, is she going to run for senator, governor? She jacked that in. What do you think?
I think MSNBC is her best bet. That's probably a good place to send her out to pasture. I'll just leave it at that.
So she could join the Bulwark, that crew over at the Bulwark, like, the Lincoln Project, maybe. I mean, that's an option. There's money there. So it's interesting. So it's what else was interesting about this was the last couple of elections. Clearly, the billionaire class were behind the Democrats. That was the case with Obama, Hillary Clinton, and Biden. Okay, pretty much the billionaire class, liberal. But this time, billionaires have deflected, peeled off, and back. Some of them back Trump. How big of a factor do you think this was? I know the last couple of campaigns, at least the first one, Donald Trump, raising money wasn't a big issue. That was actually the cheapest presidential campaign. He beat Hillary Clinton, who raised nearly $1 billion and lost. Trump didn't spend hardly anything. He got all free media, basically, because everyone was covering his. Even people hated him were running his speeches. He got all this airtime. That didn't happen so much in 2020, although he did raise a lot of money, ran a pretty strong campaign. This time, Hesher, totally different campaign. They spent a lot of money on a lot of very clever ads. They did a lot of clever marketing. I don't know if you caught any of this stuff, but some of it was actually pretty good. I was impressed. And then he did the podcasting circuit. So what do you think about the campaign? Do you think how significant do you think some of those moves were in sort of capturing demographics?
They were huge. They were absolutely huge. And I've seen people in the mainstream media crediting Barron Trump for encouraging his father to do things like go on Joe Rogan and Theo Vaughn and, all these different podcasts. Let's face it. It used to be you tell, 10 years ago, you tell someone you're podcasting and they'd look at you and be like, no one's going to do that. No one's going to listen to that. And now it's just like, people are saying that to CIANN and MSDNC. They're like, no one's listening to that. No one wants to see that. So yeah, he did himself a massive favor by going out and taking that route. And that's sort of the I gotta give it up for RFK for that, because he was sort of the first big name I saw in this cycle that was doing that was going out and having open forum discussions. Going on podcasts, going to places where he would be, in a captive audience for an extended amount of time without, a teleprompter and without knowing what kind of questions he was going to be asked. And we recognized that immediately and said, this is a tactic that is going to work. And sure enough, Donald Trump not only jumped on that train, but, pulled RFK Jr. onto that train with him and kind of rode on that style. And of course, Kamala Harris, she wouldn't take the interview with Joe Rogan, not unless he was going to come to her and the questions were going to be curated and all that. So that made a huge, huge difference. And the other thing is his coalition, the coalition that he built. And, my supposition is that this started a long time ago. The sort of rebranding of a lot of the people in his coalition to include Elon Musk, Tulsi Gabbard, RFK Jr. himself, Vivek, a number of people, all of whom, these rebrandings do beg some questions. All right. I'm not setting that aside.
Right.
But when Tulsi Gabbard walked away from the left and started making 2A videos, going out in a plate carrier and shooting an AR-15 on YouTube, I thought to myself, something's up here. This is yes, she's allowed to change her opinion and her party and all that. I give her that and I applaud that if it's all organic, but it felt like there was a PR wing behind that, basically.
Hmm.
And same for a lot of that, intellectual dark web. A lot of them sort of slowly drifted into the, Con Inc. and into the MAGA sphere. And that coalition has been banger, absolutely banger for Donald Trump, because you've got heavy hitters talking about health, talking about tech, talking about the border, all the things that voters are passionate about right now. So yeah, I think the way, and he did over 900 rallies. Also, I mean, he rally. It was just,
900.
it's amazing. So way outperformed, and the updated style to include open forum podcasting, that could change politics forever. I mean, it's not going to be the same old stuff anymore. People aren't going to be interested in just the ads and just the mainstream debates. Like, they want to see him sitting down with someone that's going to at least ask him questions. I mean, it's not like Joe asked him really hard questions like you or I or Adam would have, but at least you get to see the person's personality in free form, and that's what draws people in these days.
Yeah, and that's kind of the theme, the unofficial theme, disinformation, the disinfo racket for this week's Sunday Wire here, episode 522 on the Alternate Current Radio Network. We're also streaming out live on X, YouTube, Facebook, our Facebook fan page, and also a couple of other platforms as well. Rumble's got a really bad bug. I have to send them an email. But a lot of people are having trouble with their live streaming on Rumble. Sorry, guys, but not good. So, but anyway, the podcasting thing is interesting, Hesher, because I would say that if this is deemed to be a major factor in this election, and I think we can agree that definitely it was a positive for Trump and a negative for Harris. Okay, that Trump does well in long form exchanges, and he likes to have the floor and just kind of let it rip for half hour. He's good with his time. He's generous. He'll sit for 45 minutes, an hour. With Rogan, how long was that discussion? What, 3 hours or something?
Yeah, it
It was
was.
it was long. So mainstream media doesn't operate like that. You can't do those types of segments. So if that's the new sort of successful route to connecting with the public, and mainstream media can't accommodate that, guess what that means for mainstream media during election cycles? They're toast.
Yeah.
They're finished. The few long form discussions that they do, which aren't really that long, but let's say half hour or something like that. Brett Baer had Kamala Harris on. It was a train wreck of an interview. I mean, it was really bad. That hurt her so much. I think even Democrats, hardcore supporters, were cringing after that. She was that bad. So these candidates who can't perform unscripted like Harris, and who can't sit and sort of be themselves in a conversation, this so that's like what we do, what other podcasters do basically every week, in some cases daily, and what Trump can do. He's comfortable in that environment, chewing the fat and talking about stuff. If you can't do that, you're going to really struggle, I think, going forward, because if you just add the numbers up of a lot of these big podcasts, like, I'm a big critic of some of these podcasts, Hesher, because a lot of it's just pap. It's just fluff. They don't really get and tackle any of the serious issues, and if they do, they're usually like 6 months or 12 months behind the curve on it. Okay, so I'm very critical of it, but the fact is, this is how a lot of young people. You mentioned Barron Trump, Donald's son. He apparently gave a list of, these are the shows you need to get on, and they made it happen, and hit all those marks. And if you add the numbers up in terms of media impressions and views and stuff like that, I mean, yeah, it's good. It's a good investment for your time, but the return's not there on mainstream. So, but if you can't play that game, like, if you're a candidate and you can't, Barack Obama can't even go on some of these things. If the biggest, so this is what happened. Do you remember when talk radio determined who got the Republican nominee, and in some cases, in 2016, talk radio helped get Donald Trump elected in America. Conservative talk radio. It was that influential.
Yeah,
And that,
Limbaugh, Savage, those guys.
Limbaugh, Savage, the list is a whole list of shows. So if you manage to capture them, you did. So now that's moving to the sort of background a little bit. The podcasting is coming forward. So the most popular podcasts are conservative podcasts. So they've kind of, and even people who are liberals like Joe Rogan, Elon Musk, I'll throw in there because he's always on these podcasts. These are people who voted Democrat, who are voting for Bernie Sanders, who are like saying Bernie just a couple of years ago, and then like in the last 12 or 24 months, they've converted to MAGA. Okay, because this is kind of how conservative talk radio went. Howard Stern used to be one of the most dominant talk radio hosts. Remember in the 80s and in the early 90s, Howard Stern had one of the biggest syndicated programs in the country. He was definitely in the top 3, if not at one point number 1 in terms of popularity and syndication. Started Sirius Radio basically for Howard Stern. He made the jump to the new digital radio format back in I think it was in the 90s or something. And he made tons of money. So that was where the zeitgeist was for politics. But then conservative radio basically overtook and buried Howard Stern at some point in terms of numbers, in terms of syndication. I'll even throw Alex Jones in there. He had incredible syndication in the 2000s. He's in pretty much every market. With Genesis Radio. Alex was very influential with Trump in 2016. You can't argue that. Between Michael Savage, Alex Jones, Rush Limbaugh, and a couple of other programs, I mean, they had the whole spectrum covered from the center right all the way to, the Tea Party. Okay. So now they're all shifting. But isn't that interesting, Hesher, how I've listened to Al Franken's show. I listen to NPR sometimes when I'm driving, and there's just left-wing talk radio is it's so anodyne. It is so flaccid. It's something. It just doesn't have anything. Is it the lack of testosterone? What is it? What is it about that the left couldn't make any inroads on radio? I haven't even gotten to podcasting yet, Hesher.
Yeah.
But just on radio, how come the left weren't able to dominate that platform over the years?
I think because people that listen to radio and audio podcasts, if you will, those lines are a little blurred these days here in 2024. But I think people that listen, especially to longer form things, are have found on the internet and on their podcast apps things that are much more intellectually stimulating than a couple of birds, tweeting away about all the identity politics. Like you can only drag that chain so far before people start to get bored, unless they're dyed in the wool, totally skull plugged into the identity politics and all of that. And that audience gets smaller and smaller as time goes on. We're what, 10 years into the ramped up version of the culture war right now, which is sort of a Trojan horse for the identity politics and all the, racial helter skelter and all that stuff. Like, people are sick of it. People are absolutely sick of that and not buying it anymore. So, it's just, it's not something that you're going to be able to build a giant audience on and grow that audience, because you're, I mean, any of us that have audiences are to some extent stuck in an echo chamber. But if you're honest and earnest about what you're doing, there's going to be new people cycling in all the time. And, when you show them your real personality and, your honest analysis, you grow, regardless of what you're doing. And that's not what they're doing on mainstream radio.
Yeah, so it's very partisan, and the right is very partisan as well, but it just seems to be a docket of issues, Hesher, that they have on the conservative side that are more I don't know, they're more visceral, they're more primordial. I'm talking about let's say definitely 1A First Amendment is a big issue, and for the last 8 years, the left have been kind of working against the First Amendment. It's in terms of censorship and so forth. That's been pretty clear. Second Amendment, very visceral, very patriot, stirs up a lot of patriotism. Immigration is always a very passionate issue on an election cycle, especially for conservatives and for the right. And I think the Democrats Biden has made a huge error by basically undoing everything that Donald Trump did right when he came into office, and then just demonizing the wall and opening the borders, handcuffing border patrol, and all this other stuff, and basically opening the southern border. Let's be frank, trying to turn Texas blue. Okay, let's not mince words, and also trying to turn other areas in the country blue by basically loading them up for the future, or maybe not for this election, but for future elections. I mean, on the Venezuela side, did you notice, and did anybody shout? Because I talked about it on my TNT show at the time. They basically greenlit 300,000 Venezuelans who are in the country or coming into the country. It's automatically fast tracked them to citizenship, basically. And so why did they do that? That was also a geopolitical move, because they're building a fifth column against the Maduro government, or the Maduro regime, as they call it. They're building a fifth column in America. And so from a foreign policy point of view, that's seen as something prudent. These are Republicans, these are neocons that are backing that policy. But now all the crime that comes with that, the gangs, they had a huge backlash from this because of the results of it. And this is the same with pretty much every other sort of group that they think that they can sculpt into some kind of a voter demographic on the left. And so this has backfired tremendously. Not only that, Hesher, there's a possibility that a lot of these people that they're fast tracking in are not going to vote Democrat in the future. That's another problem. So this could be a double whammy for the Democrats. Your thoughts?
Yeah, that's a great point. I mean, you look at the demographics from the vote that just happened, and the Democrats were very surprised how many people of color, how many women, how many Latinos, how many people voted, from minority categories for Donald Trump. And if they think that just because they let people into the country, that means they automatically get their vote in perpetuity, I'd say they're barking up the wrong tree, because that's not a guarantee.
Yeah. We're going to bring a Ruckus, aka Adam Clark, up onto the stage in a moment. But I just want to give a shout out to Hesher, host of the Boiler Room on the Alternate Current Radio Network. I love the graphic. This week. I voted. You got the killer raccoon or whatever there. But so tell us.
It's Peanut the squirrel, because the government wants to come kill your squirrels and coons.
Oh, that's a squirrel. Okay, it's a pretty cool looking squirrel. So Boiler Room, give us the lowdown for people who aren't familiar with the timings, content, what's happening there.
Yeah, Boiler Room is a roundtable discussion program here on Alternate Current Radio. We broadcast live to X, sometimes YouTube, always to Rumble and Rockfin and Spreaker, of course. If you're new to Boiler Room, go to alternatecurrentradio.com. That's where you can find the archives. The most recent episodes are all up there on the website. I'm usually joined by Spore and Adam. Mr. Ruckus is going to be joining us eminently here. Infidel Pharaoh, we have a lot of special guests. We've had Johnny Vedmore recently. We've had Dr. Clown and Karen from the Media Bear website. We've had Jason Burmis. Patrick Henningsen joins us sometimes, even though the hours are a little wonky for our friends across the pond. Love to get Basil back in there. Of course, it's like 2 a.m. when that's on. So, but yeah, we have a great time over there. And, I think one of the golden years of Boiler Room in the past has been during the Trump era. And I really hope we're going into a new golden age of media that's a little bit more fun to wade through in these next 4 years if everything goes to plan in the next 70 days. So, yeah, please. And thank you for highlighting it, Patrick. And join us over there in the Boiler Room. We're live Thursday nights. We start when we all gather. We start trying to gather around 9 p.m. Eastern, and then we launch. So we've got a Discord where you can get notifications and all that, and you can follow me on X at Hesher Media. We put notifications up there too. Alternate Current Radio group on Facebook, and that should get you started.
And you can access those links. Just go to Hesher's. If you're watching us on X right now, just click on Hesher Media. That's Hesher's handle on X, formerly known as Twitter. And there's another show on the Alternate Current Radio Network that has been going strong for a long time, the Daily Ruckus, and a recent series on disinformation, which we're going to talk to host Adam Clark about. This is a great program. This is a very well curated production. This is one of the hallmarks of Ruckus's work that a lot of people love so much, is the way he puts it together. It is each show is somewhat of a work of art, if you want to kind of put it that way. So that's what makes his work very special. Of course, he's done a great job with TNT Radio in the last couple of years as well, as a producer, as a news an analyst as well, and just a general pundit. Let's bring him up onto the stage if he's available. Adam Clark, aka Ruckus. Welcome to the Sunday Wire.
Don't let the odd look fool you, Patrick. This is what's called Ruckus Vision. This is the new. This is the thing. This is what everybody's doing now. If you're not doing this, you're nobody in the podcasting world. No, I'm just kidding. As you mentioned there briefly, a bit of what I do, I've always considered it to be a work of art, but it was always an audio format podcast. And since switching to video, I figured I might as well incorporate that whole concept and theme with everything, including, this was the first one that I made, this little TV/radio. That's what this is. This is a futuristic cyber steampunk kind of mashup between what would a radio and a television combined look like, because I was like, what is my show going to look like when it becomes video? So I literally incorporated that into the visualization, the styling, and I was messing around with the open broadcasting software program, and next thing you know, I'm inside the TV, and I gave myself this cool little staticky look, and it's just a normal camera, and I can turn that off at any time, because this is what I normally look like when I'm doing my program. So, but yeah, I've certainly upped my my tools, as it were, Patrick. And thank you so much for having me on to talk about it. So, and it's been fun.
Yeah, I thought that was a holding TV screen. I thought you were away making like Colombian coffee or something, or having a muffin or lunch or something like that. So that's pretty cool. So there's kind of the Max Headroom type of an updated, sort of more edgy Max Headroom sort of approach. I think that could be cool if you can hone that production value a little bit. That could be something.
Yeah, I use that part just so people know, like, you will see me like this for the vast majority of the program, and then I bring up news stories and stuff like that. But I use that little Ruckus Vision TV for my lead-in opens that I do. So sometimes people tune in and they see me on there. Don't worry, that's not the whole show. That's just for like a few minutes at max as I do my lead in and introduce the show, and I got my music and my opener, and I've been adding pieces to that and tweaking it as I go. I want to incorporate some sharks floating around inside the television set during the part of my opener where it talks about us navigating the shark-infested waters of the agenda-incentivized media and look past the propaganda. And boy, howdy, have I been forced to take a serious look at the propaganda. Nice title, your show, Patrick. That's very close to what I was about to name my next episode in my Disinfowars series. So that's interesting, because war is a racket, and so is this disinfo war. And that was something I was kind of pointing out or alluding to on the most recent part 5 of the series, which I think I subtitled that one "Clickbait and Switch," because part of my inspiration for starting this series, Patrick, was what you were talking about on Sunday Wire. Not long, it was either your official return to the program or you were just making like a call in or something. But you were mentioning how the dimwits, the crazy people, crazy, I don't know what they're doing, are just posting fake news on Twitter, and they're putting up
Yeah.
the little flashy symbols and breaking news, and there's no news there. And that led me on, I was like, oh, we got to talk about this. And that's kind of something that I've been weaving into my conversation. But besides that, the true reason I did this all was because I had heard about, it was America First Legal, if I'm not mistaken,
Okay.
had revealed how the CDC had worked so closely with the local government. And then I found out, they were working hand in hand with a UK intelligence group, Cutout. And it just went from there. And I haven't even talked about them yet. That was the Countering Disinformation Unit. I haven't even touched them yet. But I've been talking a lot about the Center for Countering Digital Hate, the CCDH, the Global Engagement Center here in the United States, which is on the chopping block in December. We'll see. And yes, and literally just the other day, it's so funny because disinformation is the talking point right now. People are missing it. The mainstream media, you're late to the game here because even Trump was talking about it. Just like yesterday or today, he was giving a speech and he says he's going to pass a law or do an executive order on day one within hours of taking office, and he's going to make it against the law for any third party group or anybody to influence the government and in censoring people. And then I was thinking to myself, well, he wants to protect free speech, but I thought, what if my free speech involves burning an American flag, mister? But anyways, but here we are.
Well, it's the disinformation thing. That's a door that swings both ways, and I think you're sort of covering that because the establishment are supposedly waging this crusade against disinformation, misinformation, malinformation, dismiss mal, as Jen Psaki said so famously. But they're supposedly waging this crusade against disinformation online, and especially Russian disinformation is particularly favorite of theirs. But the irony, of course, Ruckus, which I'm sure you've pointed out pretty well in your series, is that the biggest source of disinformation, the real source, is coming from government, coming from mainstream media, coming from these very institutions that are supposedly, supposed to be helping the public be better informed. They're the worst culprits. So that's just like perfect gaslighting, if you think about it. So there's in Europe, NATO was involved in the vaccine policing through EU versus Disinfo, Stratcom. They're really intricately involved in the whole vaccine conversation online. So that's the military basically involved in that. So we have the same problem in America. The Pentagon and 77th Brigade in the UK, they're involved in policing speech online and running sock puppet accounts and infesting comment sections, trying to create consensus and so forth. You got the Philip Crosses of the world, which is just a brand for a boiler room full of people editing Wikipedia pages. A group login for like 200 people or whoever's doing it. Israel's invested a lot of money in this. I posted that Wikipedia story on my Twitter feed today. So to tell us, Ruckus, about your series, how are you putting it together? Tell us about the first couple of episodes and what your kind of strategy is for telling the story.
Well, I'm very much interested in how, right out of the gate, even with the title of the series being Disinfowars, that was actually right around the same time that Infowars was on its last leg. The courts had finally ordered the closing of Alex Jones' Infowars, and they were trying to take away his name from him and all this scary stuff. The stuff happened with TNT right around the same time. So I was noticing already, because what I was doing, of course, on TNT Radio, now the Pulse.today, shout out to them for their resurrection, that I reported a lot of news stories. And when you look at a lot of news and you see a lot of talking points being repeated, and I noticed pretty quickly, I was like, well, wait a minute, because we had the pandemic and we had to do all of these things in the name of fighting an invisible enemy. So that was where I started out the series, was with this concept of invisible enemy and this wartime language that was being used, which had shifted briefly and still does. You'll hear this. They talk about this in the arena of climate change. So there's a lot of climate change and disinformation. They talk about that. John Kerry was talking about that. I highlighted him on my series. That guy's a super ghoul, where he was talking about, hey, we just need to hammer hammer away, get rid of free speech entirely. I was like, whoa, wow, talk about ripping off the mask, right? But they were using this same wartime language. They need to fight this invisible enemy, this fake concept known as misinformation and disinformation. And interestingly enough, there's been very little talk recently of malinformation, but I think it's very similar because a lot of that was spoken about in the context of the health stuff, if I'm not mistaken. But they do distinguish the difference between misinformation and disinformation, so it does get confusing, but they are at war with both of these things at the exact same time. And I just went from there, focusing on this idea, okay, if it's war, you hear what the BBC was talking about recently. They just put out this their new campaign is, we're fighting for truth. And it was like very visually shocking. I mean, it was like, it looked like war, but they were talking about fighting disinformation. It's like, get out of here. Talk about projection, because as you mentioned, and I did and have been pointing out, that the biggest perpetrators of real disinformation in particular, not necessarily misinformation, they're far less guilty of that. They're very guilty of pushing out disinformation and propaganda all the time. That's the mainstream media. And the other thing I've noticed is the mainstream media has been dying. We're proof of that. You know, the alternative media, this is not a concept lost on us, but the thing is, it's not a concept lost on them either. And just on my more recent episode, I brought up, I wanted to do it earlier on, about the fact that, you know, they know that they are dying. They've lost the traditional gatekeeping method, because it's not, the fourth estate it's not about reporting news. It's always about pushing propaganda and gatekeeping the truth. That's what it's been about. And I presented evidence of that along the way with my series here. So clearly, when you look up and you understand that X and other social media platforms are the #1 source of news, it clearly indicates that, you know, hey, if the game and the idea is to control the narrative, control the flow of information, to steer the consensus, and there's a war against, just drop the myths and the dis and the mal off of it. The war is about information. When you strike all that other stuff off, that's what it's really about. Who's going to control information? And it looks like X is the winner, and that's quite concerning, because, you know, if ultimately everybody thinks they're going to go to one source for their news, we have a serious problem here, especially when you see what's happening on that platform already with this monetization, which the monetization thing plays a very, very big role in this, because these advertisers, these social media platforms, they make a killing, trillions of dollars. And then they say, hey, you know what? We're going to give you a little tiny piece of that pie. Like, here's a couple bucks for increasing your engagement. So these people are just in there running around chasing a small piece of cheese and causing a buttload of problems that they're going to use to, like, thin down the voices. They do want to get rid of, like, independent thought and independent journalism, and just be one source of, like, approved state narrative, what they'll call news, and it's anything but. It's just propaganda. I made a comment the other day on Twitter, and I pissed somebody off, I guess. It was on Johnny Vedmore's post somewhere. I mentioned how the X platform is the most dangerous weapon on the planet currently. That's my personal opinion. That's just based on my research of what I was looking at. The Ruby files, I had completely missed the Ruby files until I started doing this series. So I shared some of that. And the thing is, Elon Musk was talking about that on X. So Elon Musk understands what X is and was when he bought it. He understood that it was a weaponized propaganda tool, and all the things that they were able to get away with during the pandemic. I'm thinking in my head, who in their right mind would want to buy something like that? I don't trust his motives at all, Patrick. Not at all.
Well, I think a healthy dose of skepticism, I think, is definitely in order. You know, he wants it to be the one-stop shop for information, finance, banking. He wants X.com to comprise 50% of the global GDP in terms of, like, flow of money, you know, trading, everything. So, is that level of centralization good? Is that healthy? Is that something that we want? If there's a problem, it cascades through the whole system. That's the problem with that. And you know what? You know, Elon is arguably, you know, extremely intelligent, smart, genius on many levels. Certainly, what he's done with some of his ventures is remarkable, like SpaceX and so forth. However, his taste in news is a little bit shaky. Okay, so the types of accounts that he boosts on X that he says are news, or he calls citizen journalism, are pumping out some of the worst fake news you can possibly imagine. And they're doing it on a daily basis, and he's paying them to do it. And his algorithm incentivizes people that don't source claims or news, who write breaking news that's not breaking. They don't put any source link to it. The algorithm prioritizes those types of tweets. And so those are the highest performing accounts on X. So they outperform every other news source in terms of impressions, velocity, information, and they get the highest payouts per month in X monetization. So he's created a disinformation and propaganda and fake news machine that is now self-propagating. And he likes it because a lot of these accounts, for the reasons Hesher and I talked about with talk radio in the first part of the segment, the conservative fake news has incredible velocity, and it can outperform because it's emotive. On a lot of these issues are emotive. People believe in stuff because there's a novelty factor when something's slightly off. I haven't seen that before. Boom, retweet, retweet, because it's like, oh my God, I haven't seen that before. Quick retweet. I want to promulgate that. That's kind of how the amygdala works on or whatever, the frontal cortex, the lizard cortex works on social media. The thing about Twitter, and what you said is so true, Ruckus. Twitter, now X, the way it's designed, it is such a, for velocity of information and for the lateral velocity as well, is so incredible, and it beats anything else in social media. That's why they put so much money into censoring it. When Jack Dorsey and his gang of, Orwellian censors were running this censorship farm for like so many years, because they realized that this is where the consensus is going to build fastest. So that they said, "What, we got to get control of this." And then so one party, one side, one thinking, one ideology took control of it. The deep state had full control over Twitter, and they were kicking people off left, right, and center. I got an email from Jack Dorsey's team saying, "Don't you even try to log in. We will zap any accounts that you even attempt to log in on in the future. You're banned for life." And why was I banned? I was talking about vaccine dangers with pregnancy. That was one. I questioned the existence of the Delta variant, which I think was total bullshit. And I have the receipts to prove it scientifically, but that was dangerous speech. And then before that, something to do with COVID. So it was like 1, 2, 3 strikes, you're out because of these things. So that was all very organized. That wasn't just somebody in Bangalore in a boiler room of people working on South Indian, $100 a month wages, deciding to make arbitrary decisions on, bad speech or hate speech. No, this was organized at the U.S. government and military intelligence level, and that was shown in the Twitter files. So I'm glad you're delving into this, Ruckus. And so I'm going to ask you this: this machine that was built, especially in the last 8 years, how much of it is, how strong is it compared to before? Is it still going strong? Has it had a setback in recent years? What is the status of that behemoth we saw with the Twitter files when that was opened up?
Well, people aren't going to like to hear this, but it's true. You can just go back in time and look at it, watch it happen. When Elon Musk took over X, took over Twitter and then eventually changed it to X, instead of taking all those old things that were a problem and just getting rid of them, he improved upon them. He upgraded it. And because there were a lot of the problems were a lot of the algorithms and a lot of the automation that was happening, and he knew that. And what did he do? He fired a crap load of people. You remember this, right? So, like, what has been happening? So, the place that he took over, it was like losing a crap ton of money. It was a failing. It was people thought you're crazy for buying this. Why are you doing it? It's like, because I love America and I believe in free speech. Yeah, get out of here. It's a business proposition, and he knew it from the start. He knows what he's doing. People, he's not stupid. So since then, look at what dude. People are paying for it. Everybody's got their blue check marks. They're making money. They're using grok. Everybody's engaging. You have these people who are monetized now with that little system we just mentioned there, and I think he's making money off of the thing now, and he's got himself and all of the PayPal mafia people who were, a lot of them were some of the people when it was all like blue. The blue side was the one who was censoring Americans. Now they all shifted teams. They just took the blue patch off and put on a red one, and like, oh yeah, I'm one of you now. And that's my biggest concern about this, is like when they recognize that the voices and the consensus is happening here, they're just going to co-opt it. And they have been for a very long time. But what if the co-opting is happening from the inside right now? And and it doesn't have to be Elon Musk either. It could be like his engineers and the people that he works with, because he's not doing everything there. He's just one person, so he has a trusted team close to him. Who are those people? I've never heard of them. Let's dig deeper. I have a lot of questions, Patrick.
Yeah, how much shadow banning?
Very well. Yes, the shadow banning is going well. Where's Amazing Polly? Anyone? Yeah, do some research into that. Gone.
I've seen her. I think she's on a new account now. She's on a new account, but so many are being shadow banned. I don't have the reach. I have the engagement, but I'm not given the reach that some of these other accounts, and I won't mention any names, although I'd love to, that are pumping out some fake news. But they're very sort of these people know where their bread is buttered, and they're very good at aligning their content towards which way the wind's blowing on X. It's certainly blowing in a certain direction. I think Elon has to. He's got a lot of. If he really believes in objective, understands journalism and news, he'll know that some of these so-called influencer accounts are not citizen journalism. They're not. They're not doing any journalism at all. They're copying and pasting stuff from other accounts. And what it is the rich get richer, because if you have a big following, 500,000, 1 million followers, whatever, any sort of garbage you put out is going to get huge purchase. And then you're going to coin it in on X monetization, and the whole thing just keeps promulgating. And Elon thinks that's great because he's looking at quantitative analytics. Elon's not interested in qualitative analytics, clearly, based on the sort of comments that he's made and the accounts that he's constantly boosting. So he's very partisan right now because he's on the Trump team. He's in the Trump camp. So that's kind of like where all his energy and interest is focused. And as ridiculous and crazy as the progressive left have become in recent years, I think you got to be very careful. I mean, even if I'm talking even from the conservative side of the argument, as in the media and information space, those of us who've been working and fighting, literally fighting in this space for years, I'd rather have an even playing field, and really down to the algorithmal level, as even a playing field as I can, but also taking into account that you can game and abuse any of these systems. You can game any algorithm if you know. And I think Elon's not in touch with that. It's a joke, the stuff that is going viral and that's dominating my news feed. It's 50-60% of it's fake, and he doesn't seem to care. He's just looking at the impressions and waving this his victory flag that X is the #1 source of news in the world. It's if you think that copy and paste clickbait is news, you're right, Elon, it is. But if you care a little bit about, and I meet people that are brainwashed from some of the, I run into people all the time. I'm sure you guys do as well, Hesher. Have you seen this? Have you seen that? How many times do you get that in a week? And then you have to go through this whole mentoring process to say that's actually not real. What? But so and so tweeted it. But so and so retweeted it. And that's their big account. I hear that. And they're a big account.
Yeah.
So is that the Hesher and Ruckus too? I want to get your take on this. Is that the social proof? Is that the credibility threshold? How many followers you have? or subs you have? Hesher, go ahead.
Yeah, quite. For a lot of people, it is. It's pretty amazing too. It kind of reminds me of the old before it's news days. For any of you youngsters out there,
Oh, God.
or people who may not remember this website, there was a site called Before It's News back in, like, I don't know, the early
It's
2010s,
still out there.
late 2000s. Yeah,
It's still
out
it's still there. It's
you
still
can
there. Yeah.
you can all go there and sign up, get an account, and boom, you're a journalist, and you can go out and you can take any piece of information and you can craft any headline and any byline you want, and then you can write whatever the creepy F you want to write in it. And if it's flashy enough, I mean, I don't know if anyone's making money on that anymore, probably all bots if anything, but you would get into that ecosystem. But now Twitter, and then we kind of got back into the whole, like, post-truth era, where it was like most people are just reading headlines and maybe bylines if you're lucky, and nobody's well informed at all. I mean, this is kind of a backhanded compliment to Twitter, but at least this environment we're talking about now has people thinking they might know what's going on and willing to read something that's the length of a tweet instead of just a headline and a byline from, CIANN or whatever. But this really is no better. In fact, it's arguably worse because of that trust factor, because now you're not just, saying what you saw on some people. You tell someone what you saw on Before It's News 14 years ago, and they'd go, "That's not news. That's not a news site. What are you talking about?" And now you can say, "Well, I saw it on, so and so's big account. They've got 10 million followers or whatever. So it's got to be true." So now we're kind of in that, I saw it on the internet, so therefore it must be true, and it's actually working. So I mean, that's a pretty big play there by X, by Elon, and then the whole incentivizing of it all is just, any of us that have been in the game long enough know that an incentivization program like that is going to cause the exact problems that we are seeing now, and will get worse if it's not leveled out. For example, Photon just reminded me in the Discord chat that George Galloway posted this a couple of days ago. "Hey, at Elon Musk, I had tens of millions of views on your platform last month, and you just paid me $88. Is this some kind of joke?" Because you've got other people out there with smaller audiences than him, or similar sized audiences, and they're making $20,000 on a live stream or something like that. And it's just like, wait a minute, what is going on here? How are these accounts picked and chosen? Why is it not a level playing field? George he's a pretty big name.
Yeah. No, George's got a huge account that Elon or whoever just basically nuked my monetization without giving me any notice or anything. I think the last time I was on that system was in August. Yeah. I think I've not seen anything coming back, and I got no notice or anything like that. It was around the time I was sort of criticizing some of these aspects of and things that Elon was putting out. So I don't know if there's any coincidence there or not. Probably not. I'm just being maybe too conspiratorial. But Ruckus, what do you think about this? I'm with Hesher. I think there's a lot of positives. I think we're going through a rough patch overall. I think if Elon keeps the X platform free, that we can work out as a community. We can work out some of these issues over time. I've certainly made a lot of headway. I've got people to recant stuff. I've got people to post statements saying, "I promise I'm going to source my news," even though they didn't. They did for like 24 hours, and they realized it was hurting their income, so they stopped some of these accounts. But what do you think on this social proof, credibility, this battleground, Ruckus?
Well, that's a very real thing, and this whole time I was listening to you guys both, thinking a mantra running over and over in my head: problem, reaction, solution, problem, reaction, solution. So I think what we're ultimately questioning here is, what's the ultimate solution going to be? There's this idea, okay, this trust factor. Okay, number one, and I don't have it in front of me. It was something I was watching recently, or reading, or hearing about. It might have even been one of the podcasters that we all know and love. Who the heck knows? But they were talking about how social influencers, how that works, and why people trust experts and all this stuff. Is because they are perceived to have a large following, a large audience is what it really is, and that plays heavily into social media, because what are your followers are your audience, right? But you could have, like Patrick, you have a lot of followers, right? And you would think, oh, if I have this many followers, my audience would be that size. No, because your audience can be made smaller thanks to the algorithm, because they can, shorten this, make the size of your venue much smaller without you knowing. You think that you see a whole crowd of people out there, and there's really only 2 people sitting there listening to you. So, like, that's the level of gaslighting that social media is doing to people. But this perceived notion from the people on the outside that just because your venue size seats 3 million people, that must mean 3 million people watch you every day, listen to you every day. And if, geez, God damn, if 3 million people listen to this guy, he must be trustworthy. And there's that trust factor. It's a psychological thing. It's part of being human beings. And they've capitalized on this idea here. This is why all of this is so dangerous, people, because of what you guys were just saying. Like, I thought we all understood. We used to be able to joke with each other and say, hey, just because the internet said so doesn't make it true. Just because the TV said so doesn't mean it's true. Now we've beyond fallen into that trap again, because this is different this time, because this isn't just these talking heads who wear 3-piece suits on their CBS and ABC, which is owned by like the same 13 companies. We all get it, right? This isn't just, a couple podcasters. No, this is just Johnny. I know Johnny. He's my neighbor. He signed up for an X account, and he's been using it for 8 years, and he just built up he's just a normal guy. I trust Johnny. You see, so we have this extra layer of the idea, this concept that these are normal people, and we have a lot of engagement and access to them. That's the other great thing about social media, is that you really get to know these people and think that they're your friends. But you don't know who or what these people are. The other thing I was thinking is, this is all fun and games until Elon Musk replaces all you fools with bots, because Grok is watching you. Grok is learning from you. Everything, all this clickbaiting stuff that they're doing is training the algorithm. And I'm like, why would they do that? Well, maybe one day Elon Musk just wants to get rid of the human factor altogether and just have bots creating garbage propaganda. Who knows? And when infinite feedback loop, guys, who knows? Very soon, I imagine.
Yeah. Anyway, I've always been a big believer that the best. You don't need government agencies, the government, the defense industry, the intelligence services, all these think tanks like the Center for Countering Digital Hate. These are basically tools of intelligence services to defame, to hound people, and so forth. Any wrong think, to knock down any influencers. NewsGuard is another one of these just abominations, run by Michael Hayden, former spook. And Joe Laurie, I was talking to, he's the editor of Consortium News. He's suing them. Consortium News is suing NewsGuard. They've got arguments, and I think it's going to be in the court this week. Very pivotal case, okay? They're suing them for defamation and all these other things. NewsGuard basically gets paid to dox alt media, independent media, and so forth, to basically then send put that list up online, and then Google, YouTube, then they call them and say, oh, look at our new list. These guys are bad. You need to demonetize them. Or they shouldn't be getting advertised. They'll run to the advertisers and saying, look at you're running ads on these websites. These are not credible news sources. We've given them a bad disinformation reading. They have a stoplight system on NewsGuard. I mean, it's so ridiculous, but they're pumping millions of dollars into these programs, and they've created this whole industry and a whole career kind of option for certain types of university graduates that want to kind of get their foot on the intelligence services ladder. Or what type of a person would come out of Duke University or an Ivy League school and then take a job at NewsGuard, basically doxing people? I mean, that's not really a good start to your career, but that's exactly what they've got there. And then the higher ups are all spooks on the board. Tom Ridge, Michael Hayden, former heads of the Department of Homeland Security, combating disinformation. And that's just like one. I'm not talking about the Global Engagement Center and all these other crazy nut nut job quangos that they sicked on the American people. And it's not just America, it's globally, because the censorship that happens, this is important as well, that happens on these US based platforms cascades, that censorship coverage goes global. And that's what a lot of people don't understand. They can do regional censorship and blocking, like France has done with Rumble, where they blocked Rumble in France. You can't access it because Macron threw his toys out of the pram because Rumble wouldn't take RT off Rumble, and they said, well, if you don't take RT off, we're going to block all content on Rumble. Think of the amount of content on Rumble. For France to do that, I mean, to do mass censorship like that, just because they don't like one Russian state broadcaster, that's RT is pretty moderate compared to other Russian networks. It just shows you where we're at in terms of like people's mentality. What leaders think they can get away with in 2024? What's become the normal practice? They've been able to get away with a lot of incredible authoritarian measures, and in Europe, I think they're in for a lot of challenges. U.S. firms, because they've really taken the censorship thing on board in Europe. They like it in Brussels because they're opposing all the bad COVID policies. Where people online are opposing crazy vaccination mandates, COVID policies, the Ukrainian proxy war that NATO is waging, the genocide in Palestine that Israel's raging. Basically, the governments have been wrong on every single major issue. And their reaction, rather than to have a come to Jesus moment and realize that they might have really got it completely wrong, is to double down on censorship and call it Russian disinformation. Ruckus, Hesher, go ahead.
Yeah, it's another problem reaction solution too. Use intelligence agencies to foster dodgy information and even fake information, right? Pay influencers to run stories, perhaps, and then say, "Oh, look, we found it. There it is." It's like they started, the problem, which was the Russia thing, and completely created that. I mean, we've exposed that over and over again. That should be common knowledge by now. And we were doing that when it would get you called a Russian bot, back in 2018, 2017, 2018. We were all being called Russian bots. We were dehumanized, right? We were depersoned, not allowed to be considered a person at the other end of the keyboard, which, arguably for a lot of us is why we moved to video format. It's like, oh, really? Okay. You want to see me? You want to see what we got going here? Well, here it is. You want to see it? Here it goes. So it's a huge problem that they created. And then what do? Over the years, they slowly eke out these stories, these fake stories, like Fancy Bear and Cozy Bear. We had John McAfee on Boiler Room years ago talking about Hamilton 88 and talking about Vault 7 and how easy it is for intelligence agencies to create a problem and create a fake source for that problem, aka Russia in that case, and then tell the American public that this is happening and it's influencing their lives in some way that they should be concerned about. And then what happens over the next 8 years? Well, dodgy money from other countries and other places and strange shell companies and NGOs starts flowing into certain, conservative big accounts. A lot of air quotes going on here if you're just listening. And then all of a sudden, exposed, so and so has been exposed, Russian disinformation, blah blah blah. See, we told you it was happening. See, we told you it was going to affect elections. See, we told you it was going to radicalize people. And it's like, well, what's the original source for this stuff? It's you guys. It's Mossad, it's CIA. It's stuff like it's DNC. I mean, there's so many different places that it comes from. Atlantic Council on Foreign Relations. We could go on and on and on, but the problem, the reaction, and it's clever the way that they create the problem out of pure thin air using spooks, and then cement it over, almost a decade by actually causing it to happen and coming up with examples of it. And then the solution, well, we know what that is. It's technocracy. It's digital IDs. It's, et cetera, et cetera. And that's one of my takeaways from Ruckus's Disinfo series is that we can't sit on our laurels. We can enjoy the win here, if you will, or maybe more enjoy the loss for the Democrats, but we can't sit here on our laurels and allow digital IDs to be promoted by people that, are now all of a sudden superheroes in a lot of people's eyes.
Yeah, there's that the specter of the digital proving your digital personhood to get access to the interwebs. There's that issue, and how easily that can be shut off. Basil Valentine, our roving correspondent for politics, culture, sport, philosophy, archaeology, and betting. Basil, first of all, welcome to the Sunday Wire this week. Great to see you.
Good afternoon, gentlemen. Nice to see you all.
Tell us, Basil, I'm going to get your reactions. U.S. elections, the betting markets. Did anybody make any money, or did Donald Trump just tighten up the odds so much that you had to have cash to make cash? What did you think of last week? Your reactions?
Well, first of all, I must admit I got it wrong. I thought they were going to rig it for Kamala once again, and then on Wednesday I spoke to Gary Sandstrom, is it? The chap
Greg Sandstrom.
Yeah, who said that they tried to rig it in Pennsylvania again, but this time round Republicans had ground troops and lawyers and cameras and everything else in place to stop the steal, as it were. But it does make the 81 million votes that Biden got last time round stick out like a sore thumb. People are still spinning that, all the way to the line. Obama got mid-60s twice. Hillary got low 60s. Kamala got low 60s, millions of votes, but somehow Joe got over 80 million. Completely bizarre. It remains to be seen if Donald is going to follow through on, a forensic examination. In the UK, it would be a public inquiry into what happened last time round with the voting, because if they could turn that over, that would be fantastic. I'm afraid I got sucked into thinking that, as I say, that Kamala was going to win by virtue of the rigging, that basically permanent Washington. Jeffrey Tucker of the Brownstone Institute was amongst the people that told me in the run-up to the election, no way was Donald Trump going to be allowed back in the White House. No way. And I took them at their word. Perhaps there is still a little sliver of democracy in the US. I mean, he won by a landslide in the end. It would have been very difficult to rig. The true figures may be even more dramatic. As I say, it's possible that what support Harris appears to have received may itself be inflated artificially. So I got it flat wrong, but I'm quite glad I was wrong.
Yes, listen, I don't fault you for taking that position, Basil, ahead of the election, because you just basically try and do your best, like any good pundit like yourself, to handicap the situation a little bit, hedge your bets. I mean, once bitten, twice shy, as they say. Certainly, a lot of us are still feeling the pain.
I thought, that the powers that be, so to speak, permanent Washington, the corporate media class, the donor class, the billionaires, all wanted to see Donald Trump consigned to the dustbin of history, an old man with an old nationalistic message. No, thank you very much. A two-time loser. They could not only destroy him, but destroy his memory and his ideas, and goodbye, we're going forward with the new, woke, hopey, changey Harris, hurrah for genocide, let's start World War III, we've got nothing to offer the American people, but who cares? That whole agenda, But I was wrong. It's a complete political reset. I've noticed Marianne Williamson popping up on YouTube on a lot of the talking heads. So she's one of the very few Democrats to actually have analysed the situation correctly, because they're all blaming everyone in a circular firing squad. Pelosi has come out and blamed Biden for not getting out of the race earlier, and thereby possibly having had, Democrats having a better candidate than Harris, somebody who could at least string a sentence together. And of course, they're blaming the voters. I mean, I don't know if you saw that excerpt from The View with Sonny Hostin and what's her name?
Terrible human being she is. She is a horrible person. She really is just incredible, just mean, the gutter of identity politics. And herself, she's a multimillionaire, of course, so she's suffering tremendously from her whatever her gig is, 10 million a year on The View. I'm not sure what they're paying her, but
of course, her and Whoopi Goldberg basically insulted Latino voters, saying the only reason they voted for Trump is misogyny and racism. Lots of accusation. Joy Reid has jumped on the racism banner. Basically, white people, although they were quite happy to elect Barack Obama twice, America's become a much more racist country, obviously, in the last 8 years, which is why they didn't. What possible other reason could you have for not voting for a paragon of virtue and a model of intellectualism, vision, and clarity than Kamala Harris, unless you were a racist? It's obvious.
She's like, I woke up after the election day, and this isn't the country I really want to live in. It's the hate, the racism, and so forth. It's kind of getting old. So there's no self-reflection there. I will say this too about the Democrats have made one fatal mistake, and they made it at least twice. The selection of Hillary Clinton, of Tim Kaine as her running mate. I couldn't think of a worse running mate to select, and they did it again with this. What's his name? Tim Walz. His wife basically threw a wobbler on this morning, and I don't know. She's lost her mind. But this Tim Walz guy. I mean, what a creepy, unappealing individual that kind of gives you the creeps just looking at him. Why did they select this guy? I mean, he's got nothing, there's no appeal at all to anybody. And like, if they're all about color and the youth and diversity, why did they pick the worst looking, most boring kind of non-pizzazzy white man? It's just beyond me. But anyway, that aside,
go ahead. The thing about Mrs. Waltz's outburst, this fight will go on. I don't know if you saw the clip of her speech a couple of days ago. What is the fight? What is that fight, Mrs. Waltz? You're not fighting for working class Americans. That much is obvious. You offer them nothing at all. I mean, one of the statistics that Marianne Williamson brought up is that 47% of Americans regularly skip meals so that they can afford to pay their rent. I mean, it's absolutely breathtaking stuff. Real wages for industrial and manufacturing workers have not gone up since the days of Richard Nixon. And yet we're going to fight this fight. What is this fight? It's total garbage, even if it's women's rights. Well, we know that Democrats are very keen on biological males in women-only spaces and biological males in women's sports. So that's hardly sticking up for women's rights. And as we know, the abortion question is going back to state. In the final analysis, women in Pennsylvania would rather someone who at least listens to their concerns about the price of groceries, i.e. Donald Trump, and might do something about it, rather than somebody who has no interest whatsoever and tells them they're delusional and that inflation is down when they say they can't afford their usual basket of groceries. Oh, but remember, women in Alabama might have to travel out of state to get an abortion. Well, that argument didn't play in the end.
And neither did the sort of radical identity politics. I mean, I think if anything, this was a referendum on that whole crazy progressive agenda that's been allowed to kind of. I mean, Joe Biden took this and ran with this with the most amount of vigor. He appointed all these trans women, forgot the term right, to cabinet positions. I mean, it is really kind of, it turned into, I mean, who was the guy that was in charge of nuclear waste who got Sam Britton. He got done for stealing luggage twice. He's got like
Yes.
a shaved head, a mustache, and wearing a dress. I mean, it's a clown show. I mean, it's
And
like
lipstick.
Dame Edna. Bring back Dame Edna. She had a lot more class as a proper tranny than some of these trans. I mean, I'm old enough to remember when you had trannies. So as far as I'm concerned, the trannies had more class, more dignity, and more grace than today's some of these people in the Biden administration. I mean, it's kind of a national embarrassment in a way. This was a complete repudiation of that. And now, oh my gosh, Hesher's just throwing that up on screen.
That's right. That's
Don't
the
miss
worst.
Rachel Levine there, our U.S.
Rachel-
Public Health Service Commissioner.
Rachel Levine wearing a military uniform, I might add there. Yes, showing her rank. So she get a position in. I mean, it's just kind of.
I think that's all part of the kink. Is dressing up in uniforms, you know.
Well, no, the kink, the kink is selecting people because of their identity rather than their skills or their competency. That's like become the Democrat kink. And Kamala Harris kind of embodied that as well, because she didn't even bother to run in the primaries. They didn't even like give her a chance to put her in early enough and shuffle Biden out. The whole thing was a disaster. Do you think the Democrats will recover from this, Basil? And if so, how long will it take for them to get back on their feet?
Well, at some point they will. I mean, it's a two-party system, and the machine needs both parties to be functioning. So, you know, and of course, Trump can only serve this one term of 4 years. J.D. Vance may emerge as a natural successor. Perhaps it'll be somebody else, but a lot can happen in 4 years. So, yeah, I mean, if the Democrats come back with a charismatic young leader who's got a different message altogether, then they stand every chance of winning next time round. It's as simple as that. I don't think there's huge loyalty to the Republican Party. It was that, you know, Donald Trump has far more appeal than Kamala Harris. But as I say, obviously, you know, he won't be running in 4 years' time. But hopefully the old guard at the top of the Democratic Party, the Nancy Pelosi's, Obama's, Clinton's, Biden's, and Harris herself of this world, Chuck Schultz as well, let's chuck him in there. They've all got to go. They've all got to go. They've all got to shut up and retire. Some would say disgracefully, but certainly get out of the way, because
not just the Democrat, Mitch McConnell as well.
Right, he's going.
There's
he's
the Erdl the turtle. So anyway, we're gonna do a hard pivot here. I'm gonna throw a tweet up on screen. I want you guys to read it carefully. It is from the current president of the United States. His name is Joseph R. Biden. This is what he tweeted out this morning. Let's take a look at this. He's talking about the Israeli football hooligans in Amsterdam. He said, Joe Biden says, this is what he came straight out of the gates with. The anti-Semitic attacks on Israeli soccer fans in Amsterdam are despicable and echo dark moments in history when Jews were persecuted. We've been in touch with the Israeli and Dutch officials and appreciate Dutch authorities' commitment to holding the perpetrators accountable. We must relentlessly fight anti-Semitism wherever it emerges, says Joseph Biden. That's his hot take on what went down in Amsterdam. And that is the diametric opposite of what actually happened. And he's not the only one coming out with these statements. This is like bizarro world, literally a total inversion of events. That is the head of state in America tweeting this out. I mean, guys, I'm speechless. I'll show you what really happened in a moment because we have some footage, but I want to get to Hesher, your thought. Have you followed this story at all?
Yeah.
Ruckus, any guys want to weigh in? Go ahead.
I've been following this one, and I got to give X a hats off right here, because you can go on X and find out exactly what happened that night from people that were there, people that took some of the footage even that's being distorted in the media. And what you've got here is, well, I'll let you lay it out, Patrick, but what, just generally speaking, what I saw when I looked into this was what I see a whole bunch of times. A situation is whipped up by people with perhaps intelligence interests, and then it is reported as something organic in the mass media cartel, and it's the aggressors use a particular tactic to frame themselves as the victims, and boom, there you go. You've got a whole bunch of a rash of anti-Semitism, even though the people that were there and experienced it know that's not exactly what happened. They know that's kind of the opposite of what happened.
Yes. Ruckus, did you catch any of this one?
Yeah, I don't want to, give away the punchline, but yeah, you're correct. That is not what happened. Very shocking to see that coming from the United States president. Happy to see that guy's still around. I had no idea. I thought
There's
he just
70
dropped
days
off the
left,
planet.
Ruckus. There's 70 days. A lot of
Oh,
damage
boy.
can be done in 70
I will
days.
say real quick about Biden, if anyone missed it, when he came out and gave a speech congratulating Trump, Joe Biden was suddenly alive and aware and could talk, and he wasn't shuffling around or confused. I thought that was very strange.
I think he feels the weight of the world is off his shoulders, and he doesn't have to deal with expectations at this point. It's the only way I can sort of describe what's going on
Well,
there.
there were
Unless he was
lots of
faking it.
stories about fighting in between the Kamala Harris and Joe Biden camps in the run-up to the election, and Biden looked happier and more compos mentis than he has done in months. In that very, very brief speech he made, he's due to speak to Trump on Wednesday, apparently. But going back to Amsterdam, what people don't realize, rather what elites don't realize, politicians like Biden, we had the same garbage from Starmer and Lamy and others around Europe, is that this sort of idiocy fuels anti-Semitism by making claims of anti-Semitism against people defending their communities from violent Jewish hooligans, which is what they were doing. Then everybody can see through the political media class for the liars that they are. This has been a unique example of it, really, particularly stringent, particularly egregious example, I should say, of it. I'm not quite sure why my camera's gone off for the moment, but anyway. Yeah, what actually happened was, because we do need the punchline sooner or later, Maccabi Tel Aviv fans, first of all, they disrupted, first of all, apparently, for a couple of days before the match, they were roaming Amsterdam, attacking Arab-owned cafes, tearing down Palestinian flags, roaming railway carriages, looking for people to beat up, and generally making a nuisance of themselves. Then during the match itself, in the warm-up, there was a minute's silence for the victims of the Valencia floods, which they disrupted with chanting racist and genocidal slogans. There are no schools in Gaza because there are no children, etc. And then after the event, they were the instigators of the violence. And it was only when a group of Moroccan taxi drivers decided they'd had enough and fought back that they got a bit of a hiding, and that's all you hear reported, of course. So all these people aren't stupid. There was a remarkable report by Sky News, which originally told the truth. That was taken down because it apparently didn't meet journalistic standards, which is deeply ironic, of course, and then they re-edited it and then took the re-edit down. Now, Professor David Miller of Bristol, formerly of Bristol University, has been all over this and points out that the news editor at Sky News, Sandy Rushdie, is, an ardent Zionist and goes to Douglas Murray events and part of the JFS program. In November last year, the school that she supports staff hosted Aviv Kochavi, a former general chief of staff at the IDF. She admits she uses the well-known Zionist orientation to reassure British Zionists in her work as a journalist, etc. So,
you mentioned Douglas Murray. Don't get me started on Douglas Murray. A tragic character, if there ever was one, in the annals of media. Here's a Dutch on the ground citizen journalist reporter. This with TRT, Turkish news, doing some decent reports now and again. This is how he portrayed it. So sit tight, guys. We'll listen to this report on Amsterdam. Very different from Joe Biden's version. Just warning you guys.
Maccabi hooligans were walking around in our city. They were armed, and they were attacking people from Amsterdam, mostly people that looked like Arabs or Muslims, or people that were wearing Palestinian symbols. And they were tearing down flags from houses, Palestinian flags from houses. They were chanting, "Let the IDF win," to the Arabs. And this is actually part of a longer chant, which also includes, "There are no schools in Gaza because there are no children left." And these people, they brought banners with them. They brought stickers with them. One of the stickers I saw myself said, we make war for fun, or we have war for fun. They were glorifying genocide. So of course, people from Amsterdam, they got really angry, and actually one of them ended up in the canal. That was a counter attack, you could say. And there was actually a lot of police response, but it was mostly directed at the pro-Palestinian protesters. The media coverage in the Netherlands, it was, as far as I've seen, very one-sided. Titles like pogrom happening in Amsterdam, like people that were Jew hunting, and that was the frame, that these attacks on these Maccabi hooligans were actually anti-Semitic attacks, and completely leaving out the context in which all of this happened. And that context is not only the initial violence that was being used by the Maccabi hooligans, but it is also the Dutch government being complicit in the genocide. I think this is actually a well-known Zionist tactic to provoke, to attack, and then to play the victim.
Best reports. That's one of the best reports I've seen on this, like most comprehensive. And yeah, so I think he's in Holland there. Again, some good reporting by TRT does some good work. They're kind of like a little bit like Al Jazeera.
Can we get that gentleman a welfare check stat?
Yeah. So that was pretty good. So yeah, that's so the way this has been portrayed on Fox News, that this was like the Kristallnacht. This is like the Kristallnacht, and it's the opposite of the Kristallnacht. It's just Israeli hooligans out smashing shops and breaking windows. I mean, I think you're right. I think this kind of this constant gaslighting, constant lying, this distortion of reality is becoming so bad and so obvious. And when politicians do it, and when the media, we're used to the media, but when politicians get involved in this, in the old days, you guys, the politicians used to sort of, I'm going to sit this one out. I'll let my sort of, minister or, spokesperson deal with this. It's a little bit too, no, now the lobbies, they demand that these leaders come out and say something, and it has to be like, completely over the top. It's almost like Rabbi Shmuley Botish wrote this tweet by Joe Biden. I mean, I can't believe how anybody would like put this out in public, knowing that hearing that the Amsterdam police chief saying is the Israeli hooligans that were smashing up stuff and creating mayhem in their city. And of course, there was a natural reaction. Yet Joe Biden still runs with this, but it doesn't surprise me, because Joe Biden's been saying there's 40 beheaded babies on October 7th. Him and Kamala have been running with this now for like over a year, when it's been completely debunked, thoroughly debunked, patently discredited, these claims. They're still running with it. So it doesn't surprise me. And this clown world has just gone so dark now. We used to laugh at this stuff. I remember when we used to laugh at this stuff. Now it's beyond a joke. Now it's It's beyond frightening. It's almost like, oh my God, like what's going on here? Guys, how bad has this propaganda game gotten? Go ahead, Ruckus, weigh in on this. Help us a little bit. Bring us off the edge of this cliff.
Clearly, Patrick, it's gotten so bad, or maybe it's gotten better for the powers that be. I mean, isn't this a perfect, convenient example of a lot of the things we've been discussing here? We were just looking at a tweet. That was a post on X, right? That was a tweet from the president. Yes. Okay. So this is the world that we live in now. Okay. So it used to be like if the president of the United States wanted to make an official statement about an international incident, he would probably have to get up in front of a podium somewhere and talk, right? Now he can just pump out a tweet. And that wasn't him who wrote this tweet or pumped that out. Obviously, this was a staffer of some sort. But look at this. This is wild. And that's news. So like now, I bet you I can probably go like look up something about this, about the president making a statement. And now the news articles are going to be articles written about a tweet. And it's going to source the tweet and cite back to the tweet. See, there's that feedback loop thing I was mentioning earlier. But yeah, obviously the propaganda has gotten so bizarre, clown world as you described it, that this is where we are. The president goes out and puts propaganda in the form of a tweet on X. And X is owned by Elon Musk, who has been shilling for the other side. So this is all very strange to me. We're going to have to see where this goes. Again, waiting for that solution as we're witnessing the reaction to their problems.
Okay. Anybody, any final thoughts on this? We're going to put this one to bed. It's a total debacle. The Amsterdam. I think this was a setup because I was led to believe that Mossad had sent agents with the Tel Aviv Maccabi supporters. So it's almost like they wanted to create a narrative that Jews were no longer safe in Europe. Ergo, you must support Israel and support this genocide that we're doing in Gaza because the Arabs, if help us kill them in the Middle East. This is what Israel's position is. Help us kill Arabs in the Middle East so they don't emigrate to Europe. That's kind of how they're selling this to the Geert Wilders and the right wing of the right wing of Europe. I mean, am I exaggerating?
That's right. No, not at all. There's a banner in Tel Aviv this morning that reads "Save Europe." The implication that the narrative that they're constantly trying to push is, as you say, we are killing Arabs here so that you don't have to in Europe. Look what awful scum they are. Look at the events of Thursday night in Amsterdam. This is your battle as well as ours. That's the key thing. They really want to export the Palestinian national liberation struggle and completely reframe it as somehow Judeo-Christian, if there ever was such a thing, which there isn't, of course, Judeo-Christian civilization against hordes of Muslim extremists, jihadis,
So basically the Crusades.
In reverse, in a way, yes.
Basically. So is this not what the church was doing back in the
it's
medieval
ironic,
days?
Of course, it's ironic that Zionist-inspired wars in Afghanistan and Iraq, where populations had nothing whatsoever to do with 9/11 or any of the other things that they were accused of, Syria as well, of course, that Zionist-inspired wars caused the population movements from that part of the world to Europe. And now they're, of course, sort of doubling down and saying, look, isn't this terrible? Well, you made it happen in the first place. Some people say deliberately, the so-called Kalergi Paran, the replacement theory, the desire of Zionists effectively to destroy Europe by overloading it with people of different ethnicity, religious, cultural, social, and political ideas.
Yeah, well, the great replacement theory in the United States is called "turn states blue." That's kind of that was the policy basically, and it seems to have backfired in this election, and pretty remarkably. I want to bring Phil Zimmerman. We only got a couple of minutes left, guys. We're going to wrap it up very shortly, but our friend of the show, Phil Zimmerman, is in the house, and I'm going to bring him up on stage. He was threatening to do a rendition of Freedom Flower. I hope there's a guitar involved, or this could be an a cappella performance. We'll bring Phil up onto the stage. Phil Zimmerman, entertainer, comedian, all around decent bloke. Phil, welcome to the program.
You're muted, Phil.
Yeah, you want to
Unmute.
Yeah, we're gonna
unmute
him.
Phil.
Yeah, Phil, your mic is muted, I think. So you want to, yeah, that's it. Get yourself. There you go. Unleash yourself.
Hi, Patrick. Can you hear me?
Yeah. Come on, give us some volume as well, a little bit of volume. But yeah, unleash yourself, Phil, on us.
Good to see you, Pat. Good to see everyone. Hi, guys. Yeah, good to connect with you again. Just reflecting on the usual thing, the overview of the complete insanity and disaster that we're observing on this planet as usual. My song, yes. Well, I'm not planning to do another. I did an a cappella version of this on your previous show, Patrick, on TNT, which was plagued by technical gremlins.
Yeah, I did. I put that up on YouTube. I got a strike straight away just because they said it was just a horrendous performance. They gave me a strike on YouTube.
Excellent. Well, there's no such thing as bad publicity, of course. My song is out now, Patrick. It's out on all the streaming platforms. It's up on YouTube and it's up on Rumble. I thought you might be going to be actually playing the finished version rather than
the video. I don't have the. I don't. Have you got a video? Have you filmed a video?
Yeah, I sent you the video actually, and I've also sent you the WAV and the link to the. I don't know if you're able to play it. Are you from that, or do you need the actual?
Not at the moment. We weren't able to. I didn't get a chance to arrange that. But what we'll do is, we feature independent artists every week. We're going to run some of Joseph Arthur's new track, maybe if we can manage to get that together. But we feature independent artists, so we'll put it on our rotation for independent artists. But if you want to give us an a cappella performance again, Phil, we'd be more than happy to accommodate because I actually enjoyed that TNT performance that you gave. Yeah, I thought it was great.
Well, I think I would have to do it, without the backing track, because we did use the backing track last time, and it was somewhat distorted, you might say. It sounded like I was being backed by, aliens that had just landed to invaded the Earth, and thought they'd give us the benefit of one of their top hits. So it didn't sound quite.
So the track.
I've shared the link to the video on YouTube, Patrick, on our Skype thread and in the conversation thread here on StreamYard.
We got links to Phil Zimmerman's Twitter account on our X post, or his X account. I'm still saying Twitter, and I am going to share. We'll share that as well, so we don't have it to hand. Freedom Flower. What's the track about? Where can people download it?
They can download it from Spotify and iTunes and all the major globalist evil streaming platforms, and all the evil other places like YouTube. Actually, Mark from Not the Beeb, who is a great champion of freedom and was a great spreader of the truth during the COVID thing. He loves it. He wants to get it to #1 by Christmas. He's put it up on his YouTube channel, and remarkably, it's still up there and has had nearly 1,400 hits on there, and it's on Rumble as well. It's a freedom anthem. It identifies the fact that everything is corrupt, which we know very well, and it also celebrates the fact that ordinary people have great power and potential. And that just needs to be unlocked, really. And when it's really unlocked, the globalists will be truly up a gum tree, shall we say? I won't be ruder than that. They will be struggling. So it's a very catchy song. And if you want to support freedom of speech, have a look at it, download it, share it, listen to it, sing along to it.
Give us the hook. Give us the hook a cappella, just the hook of the song.
Okay. They give us the illusion of choice. They say we have a democratic voice. Lies, all lies. It's time to open our eyes. Freedom is the fight. Love is the power. You are divine. This is your hour.
Phil Zimmerman. That I thought you were going to say before that unleashed, like Boris Johnson's new book. Your old friend Bojo has been out, flogging his book.
I hear he got sacked for doing so on live TV. Is that right?
I think so. Yeah.
Yeah,
Apparently,
he did, yeah.
Did he even write it, do you think? I mean, it just sounds like, because he was being interviewed about it with one of the news shows, and he couldn't remember the contents of it. And he said, just read the book. You've got to read it, get into Unleashed and read it. You know, he didn't even know it was in his own book. So that means I think he was a ghostwriter involved. What do you think, Phil?
There's definitely a ghost going on, some kind of ghostly thing going on there for sure. I can promise people that Boris does make an appearance in my video, and it does name a lot of the liars. And my Boris wig, my infamously large extended Boris wig, also makes an appearance in that video. So there's I think the freedom people are going to enjoy it. And in fact, I've had loads of comments already from people saying how much they've enjoyed it. So yeah, it's an anthem for the people. And yeah, it's a bit of fun.
And I want to also just recognize some of the things Phil has done in his career. A lot of people don't know. I don't want to embarrass you, Phil, because I know you do so much charity work. And you know, the Pigeon Preservation Society, isn't this one of the causes that you've been championing? It's a type of a wildlife preservation effort that you've been active in.
Yeah, I'm actually the founding member of the Willesden Junction Anti-Pigeon League, and it's not very well known, but it's increasing. It's really increased its membership 100% since last year, and that's because I've been elected president as well. So it's gone up by 100% now. Two members, and it's a very powerful organisation with a lot of hope to offer for the future.
If people remember, Phil pioneered pigeon awareness on, I think it was it Nevermind the Buzz? What was the name of the program?
Nevermind the Buzzcocks. The character that appeared on Nevermind the Buzzcocks was Creepy Number 5, which was a character that didn't move or speak and just stared ahead in a psychotic manner, as if expecting the number 65 bus to arrive anytime soon, but of course it never did. But it was a follow-up to my character Pigeon Man, who had an obsessive hatred and a paranoid delusion that he was being persecuted by pigeons. And this was cemented when a slate fell off the roof of his Southend flat, and pigeons invaded the loft. And this caused his paranoia to increase, because in the evenings when he was trying to read his book, Pigeon, by Dostoevsky, Crime and Punishment by Dostoevsky, he was plagued by the sound of pigeons shagging in the loft and was unable to concentrate on his reading, which led him to go out in the streets of Southend and treading various sized dog shit, which then caused him to be reported missing. But he was then found and was then seen on the bench drinking, surrounded by one-legged pigeons. So that's basically the story of how I got the idea. And as you can imagine, it was a great hit in comedy clubs all over Willesden.
And he's still the Facebook page being maintained for Pigeon Man, I think.
Well, actually, there was when I went on Buzzcocks, there was a fan page started up for that character, Creepy Number 5, the Stary character, and there were thousands of mainly young people on there that loved it, and I was going to do a bus stop tour of Britain to follow that up with, but it never quite happened. But Facebook eventually took the page down, obviously threatened by it. There was a lot of pigeon stuff on there as well.
Yeah, it's very threatening.
Yeah, I've been censored all over the place. Yeah, as you know, terrible. My other show, my follow-up show to Killing Granny, Bill Gates Killed My Hamster, which had no pigeon content in it, was banned by the Brighton Fringe a week before it was due to premiere.
That's
So
crazy. Yeah, I mean, didn't Bill Gates Ate My Hamster? Didn't it play at Brighton at the Fringe Festival the year before?
No, I did.
Or was that Killing Granny? No,
that was Killing Granny, and it was
Right.
at the same venue. In fact, it was very successful. Those,
but
Killing
there was
Granny
Bill
shows.
Gates material in that Killing Granny
There
plays.
was a bit of Bill Gates material in that, which was also in the Bill Gates show.
So why did they ban? Why did they allow Killing Granny, which was very provocative and some might say very offensive and funny? But why did they allow that and then they banned the Bill Gates Ate My Hamster? Is it because that Bill Gates was in the title that they banned it? Do you think it was just a reflexive knee-jerk thing, or did it have to do with the content?
Yeah, I think they'd seen the reviews of the show by then. It's been going for a while. You see, the Killing Granny had been touring for 2 years. It was kind of sabotaged, I suspect, when it had when it went back to Edinburgh, Killing Granny in 2022. That was the 2022 variant of Killing Granny, which was sabotaged, stuck in a venue without any walls or a ceiling, which doesn't really work for comedy. Yes, so I think it was just the fact that they didn't want anything, impolite said about the god of of freedom and love, Bill Gates, who's a great champion of health, of course, and never gets involved in mass murder, which is great.
Dude, great Bill Gates does a great Boris Johnson. Your Boris Johnson is legendary. Phil Zimmerman, and we've got the links to Phil's stuff here on X. I've also dropped that on our YouTube as well. But listen, Phil, thanks for dropping in. We'll get the video on our rotation. Freedom Flower, new track that's out. Very excited about that as well. Joseph Arthur's got a new track out, and a couple of other artists. So yeah, we've got to revamp our lineup with some new independent music. So always happy and always ready to play and promote some of this amazing stuff that's very relevant, that's got a message that's really on point with what's going on in the world right now. So yeah, thanks for dropping by the Sunday Wire, Phil Zimmerman. Appreciate it.
Pleasure, Patrick. Anytime.
And also Hesher, final words. I'll go around the table.
Hey, just make sure you stay in watchdog mode, everybody, because things are shifting right now yet again, and when things shift, they shift in bigger and bigger ways, it seems, every time. So start, just keep an eye out and enjoy the rest of your weekend. Visit us at alternatecurrentradio.com. Check out Boiler Room. Check out the Daily Ruckus. Again, if you're just joining us, we're featuring his Disinfo series, which can be found at alternatecurrentradio.com with all the reference links and all that good stuff. And of course, we've got the Mystical American Patriot Society over there, the Odd Man Out podcast, this show, the Sunday Wire, a number of music shows that we do. So get on over there and check it out. And thanks for having me. It's been a wonderful conversation, and I'll look forward to being back with you guys again next week.
Yeah, great to see you as well, Hesher. Ruckus, final thoughts before we wrap this one up? Go ahead.
Yeah, no, I'll just reiterate some of what Hesher said. That's where you can find the Daily Ruckus, is alternatecurrentradio.com. People ask, hey, where do I find that stuff? Just make sure how to find that. It's real easy, because this is where people fail. They're like, how do you do that? So I get to show them. You just click on that little menu, and you can go to any podcast, any music program you want. Just click on the Daily Ruckus, and bam, there you are. You guys will find all of my, there's actually, I'm up to part 5, but technically there was a prelude to this, so don't forget to check out the rehearsal series as well. Thank you again so much for having me, Patrick. This has been an absolute blast. And I will, I'll hopefully, whoops, I didn't mean to put myself on the screen there. That was weird, huh? Still learning how to push all my buttons, so forgive me. Again, Patrick, thanks for having me. I'll sign out this way. I'm out of here, everybody. God bless each and every one of you, and may God save this republic.
There he is, ladies and gentlemen. That is Ruckus from the Daily Ruckus. You can see he's drifted back into the virtual digital max headroom 3.0 space there. So yeah, check out the Daily Ruckus, the Disinfo series. Amazing. And Basil, Valentine, your final thoughts, feelings, reactions?
Well, a couple of good news stories. First of all, huge pro-Palestine demonstrations in Amsterdam over the weekend, in spite of an attempted ban. Far too many people came out on the streets to be banned, waving Palestine flags, etc., thereby giving the lie to the garbage coming out of Dutch politicians. The Amsterdam police, of course, had a much more truthful version of events. Not that you would know that from watching Western media. And the other good news, well, in addition to saying that neither Nikki Haley nor Mike Pompeo will join the new Trump administration, Trump posted that last night on Truth Social. It's also very encouraging to see his son, Donald Jr., giving a big thumbs up, 100, 100, 100, to a tweet saying that not only should, welcoming the news that not only should Haley and Pompeo be not in any part of a new administration, but none of the other neocons. Dave Smith posted the following, the comment that is, the Stop Pompeo movement is great, but it's not enough. Right now, we need maximum pressure to keep all neocons and warhawks out of the Trump administration. They have had their time at the table and brought nothing but disaster to the world and this country. And Donald Jr., and I followed this up, it is his account with millions of followers, has reposted that with agreed 100, 100, 100, exclamation mark 3 times. I'm on it. Well, I don't know how much influence Junior has over his father, but that's at least a positive sign.
Yeah, and Vivek was calling out the fake Iranian Trump assassination plot story, and that was nice to see. So it's good that there's some people in there. How much influence or positions these guys are going to get, that remains to be seen, of course. And then Ivanka Trump tweeted out this morning a picture of Candace Owens and said, would you support Candace Owens as the White House press secretary for a Trump administration? I was like, whoa. I mean, I would love to see that as much as anybody, but her position on Israel might rub some people the wrong way in the Trump transition team. But if that was the case, certainly I'd be very happy to see someone like Candace, who's extremely talented. Actually, I can't think of a better person to do the job, although I wouldn't want her to be chained to that ridiculous podium for like all of her time. She's such a great commentator and a podcaster. So we'd miss her if she was, serving her country as press secretary. But hey, if duty calls, you have to serve your country. Why not? It's definitely a thing to do. So that's going to get interesting. Definitely, Basil. Definitely.
Yeah, I saw that tweet, and unsurprisingly, Ivanka was piled on with accusations that Candace is anti-Semitic, of course.
Oh, so anyway, I think it'd be a great balancer to have Candace Owens in there. I'm all for that. But again, thanks, Phil. Thank you, Ruckus, Hesher, Basil, all you guys. It's been great to see you. We'll do it again. I really enjoyed this round robin format, and with so many great minds around the table, we're just bound to get to the bottoms of the issues and get to the nub of things, which is what this show's all about. And that's why people, I think, appreciate the crowd that has formed around Alternate Current Radio, around the Sunday Wire, the Boiler Room, and all the other great programs on the network, including the Daily Ruckus, Basil as well, who's holding the fort down at the Pulse in beta mode.
That's right. I'll be there 11 a.m. UK time, 12 noon Central tomorrow. Nice and early on the East Coast, 5 a.m.
The Pulse.today, and going out live stream on their website there. That is the resurrection of TNT Radio. Still in beta mode. They're working out issues and getting their streams set and so forth. Basil's doing a stunning job, really holding the fort down there, I might add. So great commentary and great news from Basil Valentine as usual. You guys, that's all we've got time for today. Adios, my amigos. And we're going to be closing the stream down in just a moment. I want to thank all you guys for tuning in on all the platforms as well. 21stcenturywire.com, our chat room there. Very well subscribed. Great to see you guys in there mixing it up, and great to see you guys. Great to be back, of course. A couple weeks we've been back hosting the show. Appreciate you guys and your commitment to real news, to the truth, to supporting independent media. We'll be running a winter fundraising drive pretty soon, so I'll be putting some details about that. I'll put some details about our winter fundraising drive along the bottom screen as well. But it's been awesome so far this week, and we'll be reconnecting with you hopefully next week. We'll see if we're able to. We might be on the road. We've got some stories we're covering as well, some great media opportunities. So we'll wait and see how that's going to go next week. But in the meantime, we'll be signing out for this week at the Sunday Wire. Again, thank you so much. Great to see all you guys once again. And check out 21stcenturywire.com. We've got a major story, by the way, which we'll be covering, an exclusive about the floods in Valencia. What we found behind the scenes, we've got reporters on the ground, is shocking. We'll share some of the footage and the written report with you this week. That's coming, so keep your eyes on our website for that as well. I'm Patrick Henningsen, your host, signing out. Take care, everybody. All the best.
Genocide is never justified. There ain't no reason, 'cause human beings are more than just a kind, defined by race or religion. 'Cause we all have souls and a mission here on earth. Only God knows why. You can't decide their death, 'cause you weren't here for their birth, or their first laugh or cry. Don't let the children die. Don't let the children die. Sisters and brothers, we know it's wrong when we see their fathers cry with their mothers. Genocide is never justified. There ain't no reason, 'cause human beings are more than just a kind, defined by race or religion. 'Cause we all have souls and a mission here on earth. Only God knows why. You can't decide their death, 'cause you weren't here for their birth, or their first laugh or cry. Don't let the children die. Don't let the children die. Sisters and brothers, we know it's wrong when we see their fathers cry with their mothers.
eyes contact. They watch our every move. They examine our togetherness like we've got something to prove. I've looked behind your eyes. I've seen the sadness you hide. I've looked into your eyes. I've seen the tears that you've cried. No, I won't get used to these chains. No, I won't get used to these chains. In the legal arena, upset theaters are staged. She moves in circles. Her cruel games cause delays. From the questions you ask me, like why can't you come home tonight? From the moment you hold me, it's the shortest hour of my life. No, I won't get used to these chains. I've got to be careful with what I say. Their conspiracy of silence, they think the truth will lead you astray. They say that they're here for you, but they never listen to what you say. They've built walls between us. I will walk through walls to break these chains. No, I won't get used to these chains. No, I won't get used to these chains.